Margie, and welcome to my kitchen today. It's Father's Day, and I'm making a blueberry pie for a very wonderful father. And I've got 5 nice cups, overflowing cups of blueberries here, and they're very nice and sweet, so you want to taste your fruit before you start. But 5 cups of blueberries to make a 10-inch pie. I'm using this pan because I'm giving it to him, and that way I don't have to worry about, or he doesn't have to worry about getting it back to me. So check and make sure. This is a 10-inch pan. So we're going to get started. Something that is really helpful when you make pie crusts is having one of these little pie crust cutters. You can do it by using 2 knives that you crisscross together. Sometimes you'll do that when making biscuits or something, but this is a wonderful tool because it does it very quickly, and you want to work quickly when you're making pie crust. I'm going to start by measuring the flour. It's 2 1 cups, and then it will be 2 1/3. So it's 2 cups plus 2/3. I'm measuring by the dipping method and aerating my flour as I put it into the cup measure. And then we're going to set this aside, but of course we'll need it again before rolling it out. Now for each cup of flour, I usually put in 1 tablespoon of sugar, maybe a little bit, 2 tablespoons is fine. Okay, and then we need 1 teaspoon of salt. The recipe calls for, but I'm going to use a little bit less because I'm using butter instead of shortening, and there's salt in the butter, so you want to always remember that because people don't use shortening as much as they used to, and if you substitute butter, remember there's salt in there. So the recipe calls for 1 teaspoon, but I'm going to take out, I'm going to use something like this here. I'm just going to lessen the salt, probably by 1/4 teaspoon. Okay, so I'm going to just stir this together, just to combine it a little bit. And I have 2 sticks of butter here. The recipe calls for 1 cup, and you want your butter to be cold. I'm just going to cut it up just to get it started. And we can really pretty much just dump that in. Now you're going to need ice water. I'm going to measure out 6 tablespoons of water and into this cup, and I'm just going to add a splash of vanilla. I'm going to start now by just cutting the flour into this butter. Good to have a little knife handy like this so you can take the butter off of here just to get it more incorporated. Okay, so now we're down to a point where you want it to just look a little crumbly, just lumps are fine, lumps are good. Lumps are good in your pie crust. It's the only place they're acceptable. Okay, so now I'm just going to add my water. We'll take this ice cube out so we don't stir that in. Okay, so I'm going to pour about half of it in there to start, just to get it started, help it come together. Remember, this was 6 tablespoons, but it actually called for actually 3 to 4 for each recipe, and this is a double recipe. So I probably needed about 8 tablespoons. So we'll add a little bit more. I'll measure it for you. We'll see how accurate this is. So we'll throw a little flour down on the table. Just a little. You want it to be a little bit dry. I can see the little lumps of butter in there. It's really pretty. Okay, so I'm just going to cut this in half because this is a 2-crust pie. And we'll just kind of squash it together, flatten it a little bit, and then I'm going to put it on a plate. So I'm just going to refrigerate this. For about a half hour. Here I'm going to show you a little something I do when I'm rolling dough out, is I'll take some flour and I'll combine it with some sugar. You always a lot more flour than sugar, but I don't really have measurements for it. I mean, the flour and the sugar do help keep it from sticking on the table, so it doesn't hurt to add the sugar. And it actually adds a nice flavor to the crust. So I'm going to go get my little rolling pin. It's a half an hour since I put the dough in. You don't want it to be too long because then, you have to wait for it to get softer. Here's a little trick that I used to use when I used to roll a lot of cookies out. And this is not the biggest table, so I'm using the whole table. So I would take a drawer. I just pulled my drawer out here, and don't make fun of how I say that. Drawer. Everybody does. So I just put my rolling pin in here. I take a piece of parchment paper or a towel or something, whatever you've got, and go ahead and just lay it in there. All right. And something else that's nice to have with you is also, this is an offset spatula to go under. Sometimes the butter will stick to your table. You got to show dough who's boss, or it'll get the better of you. And butter crusts are so wonderful. They roll out so much better than anything. Sometimes you make a crust with lard that you could get in the grocery store, in the meat section. If you can't find it, just ask your person in the meat department. And they'll show you where it is. Just going to move it a little bit, put a little flour down, bring it back. Don't be afraid of it because it'll know you're afraid. It'll know you're afraid and it will start to give you a problem. Well, I'm sure that's good enough. So I'm just going to go ahead and fold this in half, and it's so nice that it's going to go right in. Try to find your center. Sounds very spiritual. All right, there you go. So I'm going to set this aside, away from my oven. Sometimes in between rolling a dough, you might want to go like this on your table. Okay? You might. Then you can sort of start over. My mom used to say it was the biggest mess in the kitchen she ever saw. Pride myself on that. I'm pretty sure that this is probably, I don't know if I have one. Aha, I do. That's certainly enough. It doesn't hurt to have a toolbox in the kitchen. Okay, that's more than enough. So we'll stop there, and I'm going to use this little roller. Okay, we'll cut the end off. If you don't have that, you can use, if you don't have that, you can use a pizza cutter, okay? And that will work just as nice, and as you can see, maybe even better. Put a little flour on it, because that'll help keep it from sticking. Let's see how this works. Okay, I'm not using that one. So hold it down, and just go ahead and cut. I don't know if you can see what I'm doing. I should probably move the there you go. I think that's better, huh? I can't remember how many I need, so I'm not going to worry about it. I'll use what I've got. Okay. I have a cookie sheet with the parchment paper on it, and then I have my dough. So I'm going to take each piece off and just lay it down. Okay. And then we're going to lay one down the other way. Actually, you pick this. Can you see what I'm doing here? Maybe I should come over here. You have to kind of fold them over and under each other, okay? I don't know if I've ever done this for anybody. I mean, I don't know if I've ever done this in a video. It's nice to do this on here because just kind of have to look at how it works. And then this you're going to slide down over. The reason I have it on this is you can slide it right down onto the pie when you're ready. We'll do one more. Make this a little thinner. Those are cute. That's cute. I'm going to stick this in the fridge for a moment because it always helps. Now this is an old recipe, and these blueberries are very sweet, and it calls for 2/3 of a cup of sugar. I'm going to put in 1/3 of a cup of sugar. I always cut back, and then I'm just going to cut back a little bit. I'm just going to cut back a few tablespoons on the sugar there. All right, you don't want to cut back too much. I know the person I'm giving it to would love it if it was super sweet, but these blueberries really are nice and sweet. Now I have 1/4 cup plus 2 tablespoons of flour to put in. I'm just going to add it right to that, 1/4 cup. And 2 tablespoons. A 1/2 teaspoon of cinnamon, which is about what I've got in there. I've just squeezed a lemon, and I'm going to use 2 tablespoons of that. I'll sprinkle that over the blueberries. I'm going to remove the seeds. And the last but not least is a few tablespoons of butter. It says 3 tablespoons of butter. Okay, so I have my blueberries. I'm going to add my flour mixture. Okay, and then I'm going to toss it. I'm just going to use a spatula because I don't want to break up my blueberries. We'll add a couple of tablespoons of lemon juice. My 2 tablespoons of lemon juice. Just go ahead and start tossing them. Try to get this flour to stay, whatever doesn't stay on top, you can stay on the blueberries. You can sort of drizzle over the blueberries in the pan. I'm going underneath the blueberries with the spatula so I don't squash them. And they're getting nicely, whoa! My brother-in-law Mark's going to notice that those 2 blueberries are missing. And my brother Andy, who's in California, who's I'm sure looking at this video, is going not too happy that this pie isn't for him too. I think blueberry is his favorite. And he's helped me a lot with my videos. Okay, so I'm just going to, here's my crust. Oh, there's one. Okay, so there's my crust. I'm going to just go ahead and put them in. When you're pouring something out of a pan, if you take both your hands and use it as a funnel, it helps. There we go. That's beautiful. Now let's see what happens with our, oh, we don't want to forget this. We don't want to forget our butter. You're just going to dot the top with the butter. It was 3 tablespoons. There we go. Let's give it a shake there. There we go. That looks pretty good. Now what I do is I take a scissor and I'm going to go over, whoop, piece of butter almost escaped. Okay. So I'm just going to go around the bottom and cut because I don't want too much dough. Sometimes you can take all this extra dough and make some cookies out of it. You just roll it out. I hate to say, but put more butter on it, but you put more butter on it. And cinnamon sugar. And you just bake them for 10 minutes like a cookie. Okay, so I'm just going to go ahead and fold this over. Fold it way down in, when you fold the pie down, fold it down into your pie shell. Just roll it under. Here I'm going to take an egg, and I'm going to just take the egg white, we'll take just a teeny bit of water. Teaspoon of water and a fork, and just beat it up a little, break it down. See, I'd have to be on the, if I was on a cooking show, it'd have to be on the slowest cooking show, you know. Who would be the least done when the bell goes off? And I would win every time. Okay. So now what I'm doing is I'm just taking this egg wash, it's called an egg wash, and I'm just going to brush it because I am going to, and I never do anything with my sides of my crust. That's why I fold it into the pie shell, because I don't like to squash my pie crust. Just to give it a little shine, it'll help. I'm going to sprinkle a little sugar on this. That's my next thing. This is sugar. This is my parents, so it's like 25 years old. So I'm just going to sprinkle a little sugar. Maybe I'll just even do it, you know, from my hand. I just don't want a ton. Just gives it a little shine. Sometimes I have more control when I use my fingers. Okay. So the last thing I'm going to do, that was just a couple of tablespoons. If you do it just shaking it on, you'll end up with a half a cup. So now I get my little wrap. And really, it's all ready to go. I'm just going to I'm just folding this over like a little hem and pinching it, just so it doesn't fly off my pie. Okay, this is going to bake at 425 for about 45 minutes to 50 minutes, and you're going to want to take this off. You don't want the crust to be really white, so you want to watch it in the last 15 minutes or so, if you can. Take that off. So I'm going to go ahead and put this in, and what we're going to watch for is some bubbles coming up. You want it to boil, just like if you're boiling something on the stove, that flour is going to thicken up, and so you need to have that bubbling. You don't want it to bubble for too long, but it has to get to at least that point. So our pie is ready. Bubbling all the way through. Even the oven is bubbling.